Welcome back. We are here with former Minnesota Governor Tim Pawlenty. The first legal gay marriages will take place in New York. They have been in place here in Iowa for more than a year. And what has been the harm of that?
Well, from my standpoint, I don't think all domestic relationships are the same as traditional marriage, Candy. I think that a marriage between a man and a woman is something that should remain elevated socially, culturally, and practically, legally, morally in our society.
Sure, but but I understand your position on it, which is many people have that position. I'm just wondering if you see that there has been harm to Iowa, to the state of Iowa, or will there be harm to the state of New York because they've legalized gay marriage?
Well, I wouldn't phrase it that way in the sense that I think there's just a difference of opinion about whether all domestic relationships are, in the eyes of the law, and otherwise going to be the same as traditional marriage. I don't think they should be.
Why?
I know other people.
I mean, in particular, what should gay couples or lesbian couples not have that straight couples do?
Well, I think we have a long-standing practice. It's social, it's legal, it's cultural, that says a man and a woman are joined together for obvious reasons. In relationship, in marriage, in procreation, in raising children, in their function in society. And I'm not at the point, nor will I ever be at the point, where I'm going to say, you know what, that really is not special. It's not any different than any other domestic relationships that we can imagine or assemble. I don't buy that at all.
But there's a difference between you're saying, look, I'm just never going to get there, and saying there is harm to the state of Iowa or society in general.
I think when society devalues traditional marriage by saying all other domestic relationships are the same as traditional marriage, you then dilute and devalue traditional marriage.
And it's a cultural thing to you, that just culturally or religiously you don't believe that and won't believe that.
Well, it's more, yeah, I mean, it's certainly a social and cultural and moral issue, but it also has practical effects. I mean, I think, you know, obviously a man and a woman together are the traditional family. That's how children are born and raised traditionally.
There's plenty of single parents.
Of course.
There are plenty of gay couples with children that have, you know, adopted or otherwise, had surrogates, whatever happens. Are those not families?
There are many examples of single parents and others who heroically and lovingly raise children. Obviously, an example would be somebody who, you know, lost a spouse and is working 2 jobs and has children. And so I'm not saying that there can't be, you know, single parents, and there obviously are single parents who are wonderful parents. I'm just saying we want to maintain traditional marriage elevated in the eyes of the law and in our society. It is not the same as other domestic relationships.
Let me bring your attention to something that Rudy Giuliani told us last week. We're talking about gay marriage, and he's also opposed to marriage. He's pro-civil union. But he said of the New York move and other states, I think the Republican Party would be well advised to get the heck out of people's bedrooms and let these things get decided by states. Do you think it is time for the Republican Party to say, or members of the Republican Party such as yourself, to say, I'm never going to agree with this, but you know what, we got a lot on our plate, let this one go, let the states decide and move on?
Well, clearly the main focus for the country right now is the economy and jobs and our finances, but if you're going to be president of the United States, you got to be able to walk and chew gum at the same time and address lots of different issues. So these issues of being pro-family or pro-traditional marriage or being pro-life are important, and they're important to me, and I think they're important.
Most of the polls that we now see are that the majority of people favor gay marriages. So does the Republican Party look like it's behind the curve? Does it risk looking intolerant?
Well, every time this issue has been put to the people, even in California, the people have supported traditional marriage. So this notion that the people broadly don't support traditional marriage, that hasn't been the case when it's been put to a vote.
Do you care if there are same-sex couples who have gotten married? I mean, does that truly bother you, or is it just as a general principle?
Look, to me, it's just the idea that we're going to have traditional marriage be viewed in the eyes of the law and society as no different than other domestic relationships, I think is a bad idea. We want traditional marriage to remain elevated legally and socially, because it plays an obvious and unique role in our culture and society.
Man and a woman having
Of course,
a child,
I mean,
is what you're talking about.
And a man and a woman in relationship. I mean, to say that that is somehow the equal of all other possible domestic relationships defies common sense, Candy.
Governor Pawlenty, I want to thank you so much for joining us here today. We appreciate your time.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.